Today's episode of An Askewed View, Jordan and Travis contemplate the pursuits of a girl in Chasing Amy. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, what's up? This is the Askewed View podcast. I'm your host Travis Hayward, and I'm here joined with my co-host Jordan Brandis from That's My Entertainment. Today we're going to be talking about all things Kevin Smith. Namely, we're going to be talking about his third film, Chasing Amy. But first, we have a couple of announcements that have come up this week that I am extremely excited for, and I know, Jordan, you're excited for them too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this feels like a victory lap for Kevin, even though the movie hasn't even come out yet.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's all the press they've been doing, and it's insane how he's like letting all this information come out so quickly. But I mean, it's Kevin, so he just spills everything. But
well, I mean, it's not like people. Well, you should make the announcements before we talk about it. So make the announcements.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So at the point, so Kevin has announced. He did previously announce that Clerks 3 was in the pipeline, but now it is actually officially a go. He's met with Jeff Anderson, the actor that played Randall in the first two films, and who was actually the reason that Clerks 3 had previously not been made. Everything else was a go. They had the money and everything, but Jeff just wasn't on board with the previous version of the script that Kevin had done. But Kevin is currently rewriting the script with a new plot outline, which he shared as well, and he shared that with Jeff Anderson, and Jeff was receptive to it. So everybody's all signed on and ready to go at this point, and there's right now the only thing that's I know he's writing the script now. Everybody's really on board. The only thing that's really, they're still waiting on these Fathom Events numbers to come in to, give the full go-ahead, but I'm pretty
sure.
But
it seems like everything is sold out already.
Yeah.
I mean, the tour is pretty much sold out, which means that the Fathom Events are going to be sold out.
Oh, yeah. The tour itself, which also that's another thing I didn't mention. After these Fathom Event screenings, Kevin and Jason Mewes are both going to be going on tour with the film for, I think it's 60 cities, if I'm correct. But
it started out small and then just kind of ballooned.
Yeah, and most of the cities actually, because they've been selling so well, most of the cities have multiple shows. Most of the cities have about 2 shows. But the tickets for that are at rebootroadshow.com. But Kevin and Jason are going to be with the movie. They're doing Q&A after. I also believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Q&A portion of each show is going to be recorded as an episode of their James About Good Old podcast. So all of those might end up being uploaded online as well. So, I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So, so that's going to be happening. But another announcement that was just made last night, it's kind of small. It's not really so much an official announcement, but it came from Kevin's mouth. Last night on IMDb's Twitch stream, Kevin had confirmed that Universal, who is a co-financier of Jay & Silent Bob Reboot and who had also produced Mallrats initially, they had approached Kevin about going back to basically reviving his Mallrats 2 script that had previously been canceled. So
that's almost bigger than Clerks 3 at this point. Because, I mean, Clerks 3 is, I think everybody knew was sort of there in the background, and it really didn't take much to, you can complete, it's a trilogy. It makes sense as a trilogy.
Exactly.
But Mallrats 2 is just kind of almost out of nowhere. And I know it's been boiling for a while, but the fact that it might actually happen is insanely cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I know that he's been talking about this since, I believe, about 2014, 2015, that he had written a draft of it. And it's, I'm sure at this point, just from the little bits and pieces that I'd heard from him previously at different shows, I know at this point he'd have to completely rewrite the entire thing, but because we've had so much that's happened since then with Stan Lee's passing. Stan Lee was supposedly going to be a big part of it. There's also some portions of it that have been incorporated into the new reboot movie. So, I mean, he's going to have to completely redo it. But just the fact that it's even being talked about is just astounding, and I can't wait. I mean, all of these announcements, I mean, no, because James Silent Bob reboot, I mean, initially, you know, Kevin was even saying this last night on the live stream I was watching. He was even saying that, you know, James Silent Bob reboot was kind of just a way for him to go back and just play with his old toys again and just really, you know, just kind of just pop in and say hi to him again. Just one last time, you know, it's kind of, he's even talked about it, it's kind of like the Avengers Endgame of his movies, you know, there's like the
except everybody seems to really like that sandbox.
Yeah, it's just everybody has come back. There are even, I know you and I were talking about this earlier, he's even taken songs from the previous films and incorporated them into the soundtrack for this movie.
Oh, yeah. It's one huge love letter from everything I can tell.
It is, yeah. And but, I mean, he was mentioning that and that, but now that Clerks 3 is looking to be a go, and also Mallrats 2, he had dropped that last night. So it feels like reboot really is, in a sense, rebooting not just Jay and Silent Bob, but the entire View Askewniverse. It feels like this is like phase 2. You know? Oh, yeah.
It only took like 20 years to get there. Well, here's the question. Since we're talking Clerks and Mallrats, let's talk about the matter at hand. Let's talk about Chasing Amy. You know, let's talk about what the film is. I mean, hell, could there be a sequel in there? I mean, I suppose it's possible, but let's get to the heart of the film before we deal with the sequel.
Of course, yeah. So, Chasing Amy, I guess we'll talk about like just the brief history and why was it made. Kevin, this was end of 1995, 1996. Mallrats had come out, didn't do so well at the box office at the time. Was considered by many to be a flop. A lot of critics didn't like it at the time either. Kevin really felt kind of down on himself about it because, you know, this was only his second movie and it was his first big studio movie, so he was just kind of really bummed about it. Everybody that was involved was kind of bummed about it, but during the production of Mallrats, Kevin had met Joey Lauren Adams, who played Gwen in Mallrats, and they actually had formed a relationship during the production, and then also they continued through production of Chasing Amy. But Kevin had ended up writing Chasing Amy as a lead vehicle to star both her and Ben Affleck, who Kevin had also met on Mallrats, worked with on Mallrats, and you know, he just said he felt that Affleck could really just come off as a leading man, but no one was giving Affleck that chance at the time. So Kevin wrote
right, which is something we talked about during our Mallrats podcast. I mean, he shows it's there. It's tiny, but it's there. Like his monologue scene when he beats up Brody just shows the range he can do. He just needs a chance.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's and that's really what inspired Kevin and really just made him want to be able to write a leading role for Affleck. And not only that, but he also there was also a third player here. He wanted to include Jason Lee, who did such a spectacular job in Mallrats as character. Yeah, and you know, it just he wanted to include all three of these people as the lead of his next movie. But since Mallrats didn't really, you know, didn't really do so well, a lot of people didn't really have a whole lot of faith in Kevin. I mean, I know he said that he had wanted to go back to his roots, do something a lot smaller with these three unknowns, you know, that were his friends. You know, these were his best friends at the time, and he wanted to, you know, cast them, and because he felt the story was really there with them and that the characters would resonate with these faces. But when he went to the Weinsteins to ask for money for the movie, I think initially he wanted something along the lines of like $2 million, $3 million, and you know, Bob and Harvey both said no. You know,
right.
If you want, they said if you want us to give you that much money, you're going to have to cast, like I think he said, he wanted like David Schwimmer to play Affleck's part, and I think basically the cast of Friends was going to be.
It would have been disastrous. It really would have. I mean, we've already seen how this works out. I mean, Chasing Amy with David Schwimmer in it is basically the pallbearer, and no one remembers that movie.
No, absolutely. And it's just I don't know. It really, and but yeah, I can't even imagine. Chasing Amy, a movie that I love and respect so much, and that really taught me a lot as a young adolescent. Just having it being played by those characters, like not like just or those.
It would have lessened the impact without a doubt.
No, yeah, definitely, and it's but as far as that's concerned, I mean, I know that Kevin had gone to Baum and Harvey, requested that. They said no, gave them their casting choices. Kevin said no, he wanted to be able to do this with these actors, so he ended up just asking, okay, well, can I do will you give me $200,000 to make the movie with my cast? And Harvey said, you know what, I'll give you $250. So this is $250,000.
Right. Well, if you cut your asking price by 10 times as much, it's amazing what you can get.
Exactly. So, and I remember that I believe it was in the documentary for this that I'd seen. Kevin had apparently called Scott Mosier right after and said, "Dude, I did it. I got the money." And Scott goes, "Really? You got the $3 million?" Oh, well, not exactly.
Okay, we keep coming back to this, but I think again it works in his favor, right? I mean, look at Clerks, look at Mallrats. These are underfunded films that thrive because there's not really a whole lot of backing behind them. I mean, as amazing as Chasing Amy is, can you imagine it with all that funded?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, there was really no need. I mean, just the way it was shot, the way it looks, the feel of it, it feels like a very just kind of. I mean, it feels like it should be a low-budget movie. It feels like it should be a movie that was made with a lot of love and friendship and the bond between all of these actors. It didn't need big movie stars. I mean, of course, all of these actors that are in this movie have gone on to become big stars since then. But
absolutely, that being said, it feels like his most polished film. Of the three, he's clearly getting better. So, I mean, it has that big studio Miramax style film to it, but it doesn't. The budget doesn't underscore it in any way.
No, definitely, and it's as far as that's concerned, I can't really just. I mean, looking at it, you wouldn't even think that it was that low of a budget. I mean, it's less than it's $250,000 is the budget, and it really doesn't.
Right, and you would think that the cast would get at least, one cast member would get at least that. Because I know by that time Ben Affleck was getting a little bit more prominent. Julia Lauren Adams was getting up there, and Jason Lee after Mallrats. I mean, they're all well-known faces by that time. By 1997, they're coming up on becoming household names.
Oh yeah, of course, especially after the success of this movie. I feel like this movie is what really propelled all three of those actors, and I mean, like we'll get to that here in a little bit, but I also when they were shooting it as well, just they shot a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it was shot in New York, but there was also, a lot of it was shot in New Jersey, around near Kevin's hometown. But there was also a large chunks of it that were also shot in New York as well. And it's like, I mean, I'm sure it was different at the time, in terms of budgeting. But I mean, I know New York is a very expensive place to shoot, so it's just I mean, it's amazing that they got away with as much as they did, but
well, I mean, you got to think about his locations too, and I think this, I mean, keeps circling back to the same topic that we've been talking about in the past, is the culture at the time, right? I mean, the movie starts out at a comic convention, a 1997 comic convention, which basically takes up like a very medium-sized room, and that's about it. Yeah, that'd be
like
unheard of now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that was standard back then. That's how it was. You're in comics, you're an indie comic especially, that's where you're going to end up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and it's and that's another thing is like, you know, and also you notice in that small little tiny convention, I mean, that was back when comic conventions were about the comics. I mean, now it's more so, and now it's more so about, they are still about comics to an extent, but now it seems they're more about the comic book movies or
the medium that they're on rather than the creators.
Yeah, and it's they're really just a lot of it's really a lot of actors and a lot of animators and everything. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, we love all of that, but it's it's like it feels like part of the whole point of Comic-Con seems to be kind of basically what.
There's always different levels of Comic-Con. I mean, you and I both know this. There's San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, which are just gigantic and everybody's there. But there's always going to be the tiny little comic, like the Burbank Comic-Cons and the, whatever little small town Comic-Cons, which, have that same feel still, but not to that. I mean, they wouldn't attract people like Benke and like Jason Lee and Ben Affleck's character. They just wouldn't show up in one of tiny, tiny little things. But back then it was common day.
Yeah, that is true. And I also wanted to get to this was also, and especially given the time that this was made. I mean, I want to say that because it was it came out in '97, so they would have been shooting this around '96. But this was Kevin's first real venture into LGBTQ cinema and culture, and I do know at the time of its release, while it was critically lauded, it also did get some flack, particularly from the lesbian community, just because the plot of this movie, basically, just on the skin, it seems like, a straight man falls in love with a lesbian and she, ends up changing her lifestyle to be with him. And really, that's not what the movie is about.
On the surface, it sounds like something to be angry about, but that shows whether or not you've actually watched the movie. I mean, because if you sit down and watch the movie, it's about so much more.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and it's it really. My question was, did it really feel genuine and accurate, and does it really stand the test of time in that respect? And I mean, personally, I think it does. I mean, being a member of that community myself, I feel like they did really capture, just like the essence of, what it.
Here's the question, though: was it the essence of that time, or does it still fit now? Is it?
Oh yeah. Well,
do you think it reflects?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think it reflects just that period, or is it still as relevant now to the LGBT community?
Yeah, I mean, at that period, I feel like it did, and I feel like, just my thing with the movie is that I feel like it really, and maybe it's just because like I myself have similar experiences with that in terms of like the sexual fluidity, but it feels like this movie really, it perceives the character's sexuality, and not just Joan Lord Adams' character, but I mean all three of the characters. It really just perceives all three of the main characters. Their sexuality is very fluid and open. At least by the end of the movie, definitely. But not necessarily.
Although that being said, it's not their defining characteristic.
Oh,
so
of course not.
Yes, it's very much it's out in the open, and it's a major plot point, and it moves things forward. But that's not what they're solely defined by. This isn't This is definitely an LGBTQ movie because that's all they talk about. It's not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really honestly what it really is. I mean, it's in that dynamic, but at the same time, at its core, what the movie is really about is sexual insecurities. For example, Holden's character, when he uncovers, this information about Alyssa, that that she actually has been with men before, and that her experience really outmatches his own experience with his own sexuality, and it just and he feels really just insecure and downbeat about that, and he's not sure if he can accept her for that, of course it's duh, you idiot, of course, that shouldn't matter, if you love her, be with her regardless, but but at the time, Kevin really wrote this sort of, so he's, at least what I've heard him talk about it, he wrote it as sort of a reflection of his and Joey's relationship, the actress that plays Alyssa, and not to a T. He said that, he said that, it wasn't exactly that, but it was sort of loosely based on their relationship and how he had reacted to certain things that she had told him, and how he had felt kind of, weak and inexperienced compared to her, and and he wanted to be able to write this movie as a way of saying that he was sorry for, his initial reactions to things like that, because, he was kind of raised in a more conservative upbringing. He was raised Catholic,
Well, so. I think all that makes it transcend a normal movie, because a normal movie has, 3-act structure, and this has to happen, and it has to happen, and that has to happen. But when it's extremely personal, it gets far more complicated, because you can get into the intricacies of, one little fight can set this off, and, one little argument, and this can be perceived this way, or that can be perceived that way. And it's more of a twist and turn rather than okay, we've completed that. And, especially with a comedy, romantic comedy, no less, is going to follow a certain format. And this plays much looser.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And
well, okay, we're talking about LGBTQ. Relevancy with that. I don't know if you really answered the question today. Do you think people watching it today that haven't ever seen it before, do you think it will impact them?
Yeah, and I actually did want to touch on that, because I actually did watch it. I want to say, this is actually going back about 2 years now, but I did see a screening of it here in LA it would have been 2017, because it was the 20th anniversary, but I did see a screening of it.
The New Bev played it, if I remember.
Oh, no, this was, it was part of Outfest, I think.
Okay.
But Kevin was there, and Guinevere Turner, one of the producers, she's in the movie too. She's the band leader in the club scene. But they did a Q&A after, and I remember they actually talked about that. Does it still fit that kind of dynamic today? And Gwen Turner, being a member of the gay community herself, even said, she's had a lot of friends that have always hated this movie. She's always loved it. But she even said that, there are certain things that, it's not necessarily, at least in terms of certain ways that things were viewed, and it's there are certain things that you can tell that this was written from the perspective of an outsider, because Kevin's a straight white male, so it's
I was going to say on that one, between you and I will vary quite a lot on this one. You're part of that community and I'm not, so you and I are going to view two very different films.
Exactly, yeah. And it really I feel like, there are certain intricacies that, but also, my opinion, yes, I am a member of that community, but I'm not, I'm not a female, I'm not a lesbian, so it's,
well, okay, you mean out of that community.
yeah, so it's well, in terms of addressing Alyssa's character, I can't speak so much, for those scenes, the scene with, in particular, just, I remember at the Q&A, they had addressed the scene in particular that, where Alyssa basically tells all of her fellow lesbian friends that she's dating a guy, and
and their reactions,
and their reactions as to how just how repulsed and just everything. They had addressed, it's not that won't apparently that's not necessarily. I guess I suppose it could be, but that's. I don't know. That just that moment. I don't don't feel like that feels totally real.
So it's a little disingenuous.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, maybe get that reaction from maybe one of the girls in there, maybe, but to have all of them just kind of just like really just look her down like with such utter disappointment and just, I don't know, just that felt a little disingenuous to me. I mean, I feel like, well, no, I mean, I feel like sexuality in all forms is kind of more fluid. Like I feel even with people that, like that do identify as gay or do identify as lesbian, bi, what have you. I mean, I do feel like it kind of, I feel like with everyone, really, when you're actually falling in love with someone, at least this is my perspective, when you're really falling in love with someone, you're more in tune with and more concerned about the person themselves as opposed to their genitalia.
What
at least
criteria they fit? Yeah,
exactly. Like at least that's my experience. But
well, I will say, at least I guess maybe from my perspective, especially when this came out, I think this film introduced the idea of, more into the mainstream of gender fluidity. Because I think, especially up until that point, and within the community, of course, I'm sure, everybody's well known, of course, but to the mainstream population, I think the idea that you're either gay or you're straight, the concept that you could be fluid about it was relatively new and challenging.
Yeah. Definitely, and I feel like, I feel like this. That's why one of the reasons why I love this movie so much, because it really opened sort of that door to me when I was watching. Because I saw this movie for the first time when I was, I don't know, I want to say maybe like 14, I think, and at
so
the time,
a pivotal point in your life.
Yeah, and it's honestly, there were a lot of moments in this movie where at that time I didn't fully understand. I had never been in love at that point, and I had never, really, and I had never really explored my sexuality at that point, So it really, like, there was a lot of stuff that just went over my head the first time I watched it, but it really, it was one of those movies that I did keep going back to and revisiting throughout my informative years and my teenage years and my college years, and really, this movie really did teach me how to love someone, in the sense that, that you don't need to worry about those sexual insecurities. This was a way for me to learn from Holden's mistakes and not apply that to my own life. Like
right.
Kevin did.
I will say, unlike most of his other films, you do kind of have to be in the right state of mind to watch this. Like Clerks or Mallrats, you could honestly put it on almost any time and have it on in the background and catch random jokes, and it's still funny and still good. And, they're great films, but they're very light films.
Yeah.
This isn't. This is really his first foray into heavy themes.
Yeah, and it's a very deep and moving film, and it's and it still does pack the funny. It has a lot of jokes, but like these jokes, where in Clerks and Mallrats, they were really more about the, just kind of the raunchy, gross kind of jokes. This is really more of like a witty type of humor, and
let's be fair. This is still raunchy, and it's still there, but it admits it's self-aware enough that. And Ben Affleck makes a joke in there that what his grandma always said, you always get rich off of dick and fart jokes. It fully admits what it is.
Yes, it does.
And most of this movie is still very quotable. I still find myself quoting, like, what's a Nubian? Stuff like that. That whole opening scene, the whole Star Wars dialogue in the opening is just one of my favorite scenes.
Oh, absolutely! How he's claiming that the Death Star, being destroyed was just a whole just plot for gentrification, and
right. Just that inside every black man is an old white guy.
Yeah. An old white guy. Yeah, they're trying to tell us the deep inside everyone wants to.
This is such almost a hidden gem. We talk about Kevin Smith. Most people don't seem to go to chasing Amy for some reason.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I mean, at least at this day and age, yeah, a lot of people they seem to skip over this one, and I think it's because this one really feels more different than the rest of his movies. Well, I mean, unless you want to talk about Jersey Girl, but we're not going to go there.
Yeah, we're not on that yet, and that's a whole other monster to deal with.
Yeah, but this one in particular, from the Askewniverse films, this one really feels different from the rest of them in that, I don't know, this one is a lot more serious, a lot deeper, a lot.
But that being said, he didn't just stop after this. Because after this is Dogma, which has, while it deals with completely different themes, is almost the same thing. It's very, very heavy concepts dealt with satire and comedy. So, and pretty much every film after this, with the exception of things like Jersey Girl and things like that, he's at least dealt with some, well, all right, fine, even Jersey Girl too. He's dealt with some fairly heavy themes.
Right. Yeah, and it's, and I mean, I feel like this one was really kind of the first foray into those heavy themes and like the just things that really had a much deeper meaning to them. And
and to him, he works best when it's personal. He really does.
Absolutely. And this was,
this is really as personal as you can get, because the person that you wrote it about is an actress in the film. So, I mean, it just becomes even more meta. Like, you said the whole thing was an apology sort of to Joey Lauren Adams. Well, I mean, he literally has Ben Affleck apologizing to her as him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's and he even that's another thing that when I was watching that live stream last night with all the announcements, Kevin had actually mentioned that how they revisit Chasing Amy in Reboot, and how basically he had written the character of Holden, Ben Affleck's character, as a reflection of himself post-success, because Dante is a version of Kevin. Dante from Clerks is a version of Kevin pre-movie career, pre-everything. Dante is the 22-year-old version of Kevin Smith, but Holden is the Kevin Smith after, he's kind of hit it a bit, because Holden's character has just hit big with Blunt Man and Chronic for the first time, and it's starting to see, all of this, roll in, and it's and starting to really feel success for the first time. And how does he really, deal with that and cope with that, and how does he let it affect him personally as well? And it really, I mean, it may really that may shine more through a little bit more in the new Reboot when we see it, but I do know that Kevin had really, when he wrote Holden, he had really written it as a reflection of himself and how his relationship, and basically this whole movie is just really sort of a loose.
It's him talking through his feelings, which makes for great films. So we're going to deal with Holden in a second. We got to take a small break to listen from our sponsors, and then we're going to dive back in and talk about Ben Affleck and just the rest of the movie, because there's still a lot to talk about. So hang tight, guys. We'll be right back. And we're back. So we were talking about Holden, but Holden wouldn't be anything really without Ben Affleck. And this is, I mean, everybody knows Ben Affleck right now take your pick of why you know Ben Affleck. I mean, do you know Ben Affleck from Good Will Hunting? Do you know him as Batman? Do you know him as Geely? Where do you know him from?
We prefer not to know him as Geely.
People don't talk about it. I'm still going to bring it up. It's technically in his filmography. I'm still going to bring that up. Because there was a period there where he was box office poison, and that was right around this period.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
there was this 5-year journey from Mallrats to Chasing Amy to Good Will Hunting to Geely and Daredevil and all of that, and he finally found his way back. Directing, he finally found his way back.
Yeah, but let's not forget he was the bomb in Phantom.
We'll get to that.
That'll be in 2 more weeks. But
but yeah, I mean, Ben Affleck, you go from this jerk of a guy, the manager of Fashionable Mail, who has like 5 lines and a couple good gags and Mallrats, to this like tour de force of a performance that, like, when he's allowed to just rip into things, he's fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I mean, I also I have to talk about the scene where he professes his love to John Mormon.
I was hoping you would talk about that. I absolutely love that scene.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite scenes from any movie, or any.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite pieces of writing. Period is that.
Oh yeah.
Complete.
Confession time about me. When I had crushes on girls in high school, I would watch this film and just play it over in my head. Me telling them that I can't call the crush anymore. That his whole line with that is just perfectly said. All right. So yeah, I mean that scene is just it's impactful as hell. I mean, just the fact that it's just in the rain and her reaction. I mean, it's he's literally laying out his whole feelings. His heart is on the table, and it's just had this been a regular rom-com, she would have run to his arms and kissed him. But the opposite happens.
She's angry. She can't believe that that like he's so he's being so unfair to her, and how how he doesn't and she tells him that he doesn't even understand. Like, he doesn't understand that this isn't something that she can change. This isn't something that she can adjust for him, to be in a relationship with him. Like, being gay,
which feels real.
Yeah, and she just storms off and like walks away from him. And I mean, eventually she does come back to him eventually, but it just at the
expense of what, though? I mean, nothing comes easy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really, and I mean, and unfortunately by the end of the movie, it doesn't pan out that way. But yeah, just, I mean, but back to that scene in particular is just, I mean, like, you're so riveted, and just, I mean, you really feel the emotions from these two characters. I mean, so much so that you don't even notice. You don't even notice the reflection of the crew walking in this scene.
I gotta be honest, I've never really spotted that. I gotta take a look at that again. I'm not surprised, given the way it's shot. They probably would have ended up on the screen.
Yeah, and definitely, and it's I mean, they are. I didn't notice it either until someone. I think it might have been in the documentary I was watching. I'm not sure, but someone pointed it out. Not like now that I wish they hadn't, because now every time I watch it, my eyes go directly to the window that Affleck walks past, so I can see the crew. but anyway,
okay. So let's talk about the other side of this coin now. Because if Ben Affleck is, intense and just full of just a powerhouse, then almost toned down, and the yin to his yang is Jason Lee.
Oh, absolutely. And Jason Lee's character in this is, he's really, for the longest time, I really did not like Jason Lee's character in this, Banky. I mean, he feels like such an asshole throughout this entire
he is.
He kind of is.
But
well, he is, but once you, like, after seeing it so many times, and like by the end of the movie, just really getting to the root of why he's that way, and why he really is so hostile toward Alyssa, and not even to that, but also to Hooper, the other gay friend.
I love Hooper. Hooper doesn't get nearly enough credit.
Oh no, Dwight Ewell is the actor's name, and he's honestly, I haven't seen him in anything in quite some time, but he is.
I was so happy to see him in Dogma. It was such a small scene, but I was so happy to see him in Dogma.
He plays a different character in Dogma, but oh my God, yeah, he's hysterical in Dogma. That one scene that he's in, and it's just I really wish that he would have been around for more, because he's in Chasing Amy, Dogma, and he has
and the reboot Strikes Back, for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, and Strikes Back he plays Hooper again for just a minute, but yeah, it's I don't know for sure if he's in reboot or not. I mean, I hope. I mean, because that would be amazing. But yeah, just I would really love to see him again. He's incredible. But I digress. Back to Jason Lee. The reason why his character Banky is so hostile toward everybody is because, he never actually comes out and says it, but it's because he himself is gay, and right. I mean, Kevin himself has addressed this as well. He himself is gay and is in love with Holden. I mean, they're best friends, but I mean, he really, and honestly, throughout most of the movie, I mean, I feel like, maybe Banky doesn't even really realize it himself, but I mean, that's why he's so hostile and so also just. Oh yeah,
it's not out in the open. I mean, one of my favorite scenes is, I guess, goes against the idea that Banky is gay. It's the Jaws homage. It's still one of my favorite scenes when they're at the bar and they're sharing sex scars. Is one of the best, funniest homage parodies to Jaws I've ever seen.
It's incredible. I mean, and I love that because I mean, it's a crazy homage that you'd think about that, because in Jaws it's like scars from their different voyages like out on the sea and everything. Just from
and it works without knowing about Jaws, but the moment you figure it out, it's like, oh man, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's real, but I mean, there's that, and then also just Jason Lee's performances as Banky is to, he. I mean,
well, it's distinctly different than Brody. I mean, it needed to be distinctly different from Brody. I mean, he shows up in Reboot as both Banky and not Reboot. He shows up in Strike Back as both Banky and Brody, and you can distinctly tell the difference.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's such a difference between the characters, and I mean, not just in their look, but also, I mean, just in their personality. I mean, like, it's seamless. Like, you really, like, I mean, honestly, I remember the first time I had watched Strike Back, and I didn't even really like pinpoint together, because I had seen Strike Back before I had seen Chasing Amy, so it really, I didn't even, so like I didn't even, the first time I had watched it, I didn't even pinpoint it's the same actor, because Banky shows up much later than Brody's character in the movie, so it really, but it's like during the credits, you see that, both characters alongside each other, but anyway, just he, it's really such a different character and such a different performance, but it's a really tour de force performance as well, especially during the scene. I mean, the scene that really, I mean, Banky's not really so much a likable character, but just the scene that really, like, displays just his utter, like, hatred for Alyssa because he feels that she's threatening his own relationship with Holden. Just the scene where with the four-way intersection that he draws on the piece of paper with the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, the polite lesbian, and the man-hating dyke, as he puts it. And just that whole scene where he basically explains to Holden that like all three of these are just figments of your imagination. Like, she's not really. She's not into you. She doesn't like you. She, hates all men. She's not, just really just trash talking her, making her seem like she's insignificant, and that he needs to focus on their own friendship and their work on the comic. And they're also like dealing with this deal for an animated series of Blunt Man and Chronic as well that they talk about in the film. And it really, I mean, you really see throughout the entire progression of the movie, and I feel like they delve into it a little bit more in some of the stuff that eventually got cut from the movie. Like I've seen the deleted scenes, and it really like kind of goes deeper.
Oh, well, I mean, like most of his stuff, there's a hell of a lot more there.
And
I should say that, I mean, because we do with this on a regular basis, you all should keep listening and keep watching because there's so many more movies to go through. I mean, Kevin Smith had done so much. So Chasing Amy, if anything, is a launching point for a lot of stuff that comes after.
Oh, definitely. And it's it really, and also I do want to touch on Jason Lee's performance in this film. Ended up earning him an Independent Spirit Award for Best Supporting Actor.
Well, good. Really, he was well deserved.
And it's like that's really what kind of, I mean, after Chasing Amy, like Jason Lee kind of became the go-to guy really much. I mean, after that, I mean, he was in there was quite a few rom-coms that he had appeared in, and then and then a few years later he had booked My Name Is Earl, and he got that he voiced the villain in The Incredibles for Disney, and
he just became finally the household name he deserved to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And also at that same Independent Spirit Award ceremony, Kevin had won for this film for Best Original Screenplay, which like that also just really speaks volumes, I think, in itself. And I want to mention that this was also the movie that had gotten Kevin as to be a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, because it ended up being nominated for some Golden Globes. Joey got nominated for Best Actress for the Golden Globes. All right, so we're out of time already, but thank you guys so much for listening. Anything else you'd like to add, Jordan?
No, we appreciate you listening, and we look forward to having you with us next week.
Oh yeah, definitely. Next time we'll be covering Dogma. This has been our Askewed View.